Welcome to the Old Guy AI podcast, brought to you by MongoDB. And now, here's Scott Sanchez and Pete Johnson.
Hello there. I'm Pete Johnson. Today is Wednesday, October 15th, and this is the Old Guy AI podcast. So with me, as always, is Scott Sanchez. And Scott, let's take the two topics I think we have in reverse order. So Monday, we had yet another OpenAI chip announcement, this time with our friends at Broadcom, because everybody loves Broadcom these days. Reaction for what they announced earlier in the week.
I can't tell if OpenAI is just trying to be in the rescue legacy tech vendors business, or if they're actually trying to be in the tech business. I'm not really sure, but they're doing a good job either way.
If you take what's not clear to me, I've complained about this in the earlier announcements. It's never clear how much this announcement overlaps with some of the other announcements in terms of, this is for chip accelerators. It's not for the main chips themselves. And it talks about an additional, I think it was another, it was either 6 or 10 gigawatts. If you add up, if they're all separate, if there's no overlap, they've now totaled 33 gigawatts worth of spend and agreements that they've put together. And I looked this one up. You could power either Tokyo or Taiwan with that much power, or you could have 23.7 Back to the Future timed machines, given that it requires 1.21 gigawatts.
I'd rather have the time machine. Tokyo is an amazing city. I'm here for it, but give me the time machine all day long.
Well, and all you have to do to harness that is you have to go to 1955 and you go to Hill Valley, and on this particular day, lightning will strike the clock tower, and all you got to do is harness that, and there you go. You got a data center.
I'd also be happy with the hoverboard. How is it that it's about to be 2026 and we still don't have Marty McFly's hoverboard? Someone explain that to me. I'm going to ask ChatGPT when we're done with this.
We're the lesser for it. We haven't had as many Jaws movies either, but that's a whole other thing.
Also true.
Now, last week, because I was coming back on vacation, perhaps the bigger and more in-depth news, they did have the OpenAI Dev Day on the 6th. And among the different announcements they had there was the Apps SDK. I've done a lot of reading on this since, and you've actually played with it. What's been your experience so far in interacting with that Apps SDK?
It feels pretty seamless for the handful of apps that they sort of launched with. I was searching for a flight, and it was like, oh, would you like to use Expedia for this? And instead of it trying to, go to their website or use stale data, it was like, okay, at Expedia, and boom, it just worked. And the user experience was I'll say elegant for, V1. And I look forward to, what eventually might be thousands of seamlessly integrated apps and services.
So let me ask you this, though. So for the authorization and authentication, so did you have to do anything to get it to know which Expedia account is yours and potentially get some customization out of it, given what your preferences are?
I'm pretty sure it was just like an OAuth type of it just redirected over there, and it's like, do you want to give access? Yes, I do. And then it popped me back, and that was it.
Okay, so it was straight OAuth. So I spent more time, I didn't spend as much time playing with actual apps as I did digging through the documentation for how to build one. And there was a couple of things that grabbed my attention when I looked through that documentation. Number one, a lot of the language reminded me of the language that we saw when Alexa apps were first a thing. Because you have a similar idea where you have this, I'll call it an experience that you want to piggyback on top of and have some way of having a user ask for a particular application. In Alexa, you would have a keyword that you would use, and what you just described here in ChatGPT, you have an @ that you recognize. So from the kickoff sort of perspective, it was like that. The other thing that it reminded me of is the whole thing is built on top of MCP, even though some of the things, in particular the UI elements, that's not what MCP was designed for. But it reminded me very much of how REST APIs sort of rustled away and started to use the HTTP protocol in ways that were not originally intended either. So, I mean, if you're in this business long enough, you see history repeat itself, certainly. But I saw those parallels where they're basically hijacking the MCP protocol for their purposes, and they're doing it in a pretty creative way.
So where do you see this headed? Hopefully it does better than Alexa has done.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting take. And when I first started to think through this, maybe they did this because, in the case of Expedia, this is a way for them to get in front of 700 million more users than they did before. But if you start thinking about that a little bit, is it more users? Because there's somewhere on the order of 4 billion people using either Android or iOS. Are somehow the 700 million people using ChatGPT not a subset of the 4 billion that you can already reach with this other application platform? So, I mean, I don't know. I think the key is going to be in the user experience and how seamlessly the applications work with one another, because that's a weakness of the smartphone ecosystem today. Is if you do something in Expedia, it then doesn't carry over to, say, the Delta Airlines application. And there's a chance, because this is all based on MCP, to have some data sharing in a way that you don't have on the phone. So I think it's going to completely depend on if you can get a better experience by cross-pollinating data across applications. Otherwise, how is it any different than what I can already get on my phone or a website?
Yeah, it also makes OpenAI the arbiter of all of your data, right? In a way that Apple is not, because none of that data actually, like between apps, necessarily makes it to Apple, whereas all of that data will make it to OpenAI. So from a training and evolution of the models perspective, I think this is another example of OpenAI putting their hooks into data that is not publicly accessible data. And I don't know if you caught speaking of training, if you caught any of the Oracle keynote yesterday that Larry Ellison did, where it sounds like he saw his speaker notes for the very first time when he went on stage, but he got through it. He spent a lot of time talking about training, and given Oracle's position in the database market, how many customers have their most critical secret data stored in their own private databases, and how powerful that is to go augment and train these LLMs. And I think we've talked a bunch about Oracle because of some of the performance obligation related deals that they've done now with OpenAI. But he spent quite a bit of time talking about how the next thing is to use your private data, not just to do RAG or other, sort of high level things, but deep down in the models to be able to leverage your own data to materially train these models in a private way. And I think that will happen. We've talked about that, but I think what OpenAI is doing sort of takes it to the user level and allows them to put their hooks into, what's now, I don't know, a dozen apps or something, and soon will be hundreds or thousands of apps where you've got all of your data. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see just how personalized these models can become in the coming, I'm going to say years, but like really we're talking like months, right? Like 3 months from now, there's going to be 1,000 production apps running in OpenAI from all the name brands, because they're going to be worried that people are going to stop going to their app or stop going to their website if they don't have the integration.
Very similar to what we saw with early websites or the early days of iPhone apps. It's the exact same cycle happening over and over again. I'll cut Larry a little bit of slack. He's 81. My dad turns 81 here in a couple of months. And I don't think, as much as I love my dad, there's no way you could do a keynote at all, let alone, seeing the speaker notes. I would imagine if, depending upon the stock market, if I was the richest man in the world and I had 81, I was 81 years old, I might phone it in on that keynote too, like if I was
Yeah,
him. But
I think they were like, "Hey, Larry, do you want to do a dry run on this?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." And they're like, "Cool, all right, good, go do it." But no, I think there's, put aside the 81 years old, um, he covered a lot in the keynote, or at least in his section, everything from like building greenhouses on Mars for Elon to building the giant data center in Abilene, Texas. Like just a lot of AI powered things on his mind. And I don't know if you haven't listened to it, it's worth maybe on 2 or 3x speed, but it is worth it just because we've spent a lot of time, and they have been at the center of a lot of these big data center, AI data center investments.
I'm curious for you, are you on one of the paid ChatGPT plans, or are you using the free version when you're using the apps?
Free version. Who do you think I am? Yes, I'm on the paid plan. I kind of wish I was on the $200 a month paid plan so I could get better access to some of the newer features. But no, I'm on the $20 a month plan, and then I also have their API, sandbox playground access that I fiddle with sometimes.
Well, and I asked that because the terms and conditions between those different modes are very different, and whether or not they reserve the right to use your data. In the scenario that we were just talking about, if you're on the free plan and you're asking it to facilitate data between, in this example we were just talking about, between Expedia and say Delta, like they can do whatever they want with that data,
Yeah.
including train on it. But if you're on a paid plan, it depends on the tier, right?
Right. There's no toggle in the free plan that says don't use my data to train the model.
Well, and that's like Gmail has always been like that too, right? Like you don't get ads if you've got corporate, if you're paying for it, but if you're using for free, they reserve the right to take any of your data and use it to target ads in any of the formats that they want.
I would say that some of the best money I spend every month is on the ad-free YouTube. If you don't have YouTube Premium, I don't know. I don't even know what you're doing.
There was one other angle I want to talk about with the apps. The news stack called it like the OS of the future, which I thought was interesting. If I'm Google, I'm a little worried about this because your need to have search and therefore have ads served up to you as part of search is greatly diminished if this apps thing takes off. And I wonder if, they've been very hush about it, but they do happen to have, the world's foremost hardware designer on staff there, whether or not some of the hardware play that they're eventually going to have will play into this as well, where is your entire experience, is your entire window to the world going to be ChatGPT in much the same way that for many people, your view of the world is Google search or your view of the world is Facebook?
I know that Google through Android has some kind of Gemini powered app integration. I'm behind on my Android savviness because I have an old Pixel that I keep in a drawer, and it doesn't run the latest and greatest at this point. But essentially, when you think about the OpenAI apps solution that they've rolled out, it kind of is what Apple promised us a year and change ago with Apple Intelligence. That you'd be able to talk to Siri and just tell it what you wanted to do, and it would be able to use all the deep integration that they have to the apps on the phone and go do the thing. But here we are now, 14 months later, and we have none of that, except when you open up your ChatGPT app, and now you could do it in there. Um, you know, it's not that hard a problem to solve. Like you said it, it's like a simple SDK that uses MCP. It's not that hard of a problem to solve. I don't know why one of the most valuable companies on the planet still can't seem to figure it out. But I'm not that worried about Google. Like, because they own Android and they have a extremely capable cloud where a lot of this stuff works and already runs, I don't know. I wouldn't count them out.
Well, it's reminding me a little bit of early days of Netscape, where there were visions of you're just going to, like, your OS is just going to be your browser, that you're going to have a piece of hardware. It's going to look like a laptop and it's just going to be a browser. And that's the only thing you're going to interact with. And we've become close to that with the Chromebook, but are we going to see a world where, like, is there going to be an OpenAI phone where all it is there's a button for you to talk to and that's it? There's nothing. That's the whole UI.
I think for like, it's sort of like a Chromebook where like 80% of the time, that's probably totally enough. And then the other 20% of the time, you want to smash it on the cement because it can't do the most basic stuff that you need it to do. Like, Chromebooks are amazing if you truly never need to leave the browser or like some basic apps. And I think ChatGPT can be that in short order. Like, I think in months we could probably be there where like the majority of what you need to do never leaves your ChatGPT app or your ChatGPT phone. But like, man, there are things on my phone that like I'm going to want to do that are just for a long time going to be a better user experience or a more functional experience in that native app than it is on something else. Even something as simple as like recording this podcast. For those of you that care, we use Riverside. It's a great platform. It can record in the browser. I could probably do this on a Chromebook. But then when it comes to editing the podcast in Riverside, good luck doing that in a Chromebook. Good luck downloading the assets that you need and it's the same thing. I can use the Riverside app on my phone, but like when it comes to editing and doing some of the more creation versus just consumption, I think you're gonna like quickly run into a bottleneck. Same thing with like Google Docs. I can read Google Docs just fine on my phone. Do I want to create a budget spreadsheet on my phone? Hell no, I don't. Give me my MacBook, right? And a 57-inch screen that my old guy eyes can use. I think we're gonna run into a lot of that for a while with AI until it is, I don't know, I don't want to say until we hit AGI, because depending on who you ask, that could be like 2 weeks from now. But until it is like sufficiently advanced where I can just talk to it and it creates that budget spreadsheet for me, or I can talk to it and it, it knows based on what we've done previously exactly how we edit this thing. And it's like, cool, I'm working on it. And 9 minutes later, you get a pop-up that says, it's done, it's posted, we're good. But like that feels pretty far away from where we are. Like potentially years away from where we are.
Yeah, I agree. I think for somewhere on the order of, I don't know, maybe 20% of the tasks that I do on a daily basis, I can do them from my phone just fine. But for the remaining 80%, I need the same experience that Xerox PARC invented in the late 70s and early 80s that has been the foundation of all this productivity that mankind has developed over the last 40 years. So there's been a couple of attempts to unseat that, the phone being one of them. I mean, I'm sure you remember at the Google Next, I think it was in 2013 when they gave away the Google glasses and they were trying that as a UI, and that's had a resurfacing in what Meta is doing with Ray-Ban and is what OpenAI is going to come up with. I mean, Mr. Ivy isn't just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. Is it going to be something that's like a better Google glasses? Is it going to be something that's a simpler phone? Is it going to be a different order of magnitude altogether? That in conjunction with, there's a combination of what the UI looks like and how prevalent the applications become, which is going to make have a big contributor to what sort of mobile computing and AI looks like. And like you said, we could be 2 months away from a major shift, or it could be 5 years away and nobody knows which one it is.
Yeah, I do hope though that like this form factor and like, this experience where you go everywhere and everyone's just looking like this down at their phone, I hope this goes away as quickly as possible. Like
Yeah,
we've
I
had
hear
this for
you.
a long time, like since the late 90s when we were tapping away on Blackberries. Like we have not deviated fundamentally from like this form factor. And I don't know, maybe they've used Johnny's brain and ChatGPT to like come up with something entirely new, and I can't wait to see what it is. Is it glasses? Like, I don't know. I'm supposed to wear glasses already and I don't wear them. So I don't necessarily want to do that. Can you give me like, can my watch project a hologram in front of me like it's actually the future? And you can read my eyes and just like know what I want. Now we're talking, right? Don't make me like put more hardware on my body.
Yeah. So I'm with you. A couple of reactions to that. So number one, I am a large human being. So like tapping on the phone with this hand and these fingers has never been a good experience for me. At the same time, do you remember what we called people that wore those Google glasses all the time?
Yeah, glass holes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And for people who
Yes.
don't know, that was actually a full-size iPad that Pete was just holding up in his palm.
Okay, it wasn't a full-size iPad. But like so this form factor, I'll make an argument and I think we'll wrap, right? So this form factor, it's not a coincidence that this is what Gene Roddenberry had James Tiberius Kirk using in the Star Trek original series, right? Like there's some art driving life. And I think the form factor we're looking for is like Minority Report, like some version of that. And how do you do the holograms? And I talked about this last week just a little bit. When I was at Epic Universe last week, you go on the Mario Kart ride, you put on this device that then you pick up this visor that connects to it. And you have a plexiglass screen that sits about 4 inches from your face. And they then project things onto that plexiglass, that plastic screen, so that as you're looking around, you get augmented reality. And as you're shooting things, some of them you're shooting at are animatronics that are in the dark ride you're going through. Most of them that you're shooting at are things that are projected on top of it. But there's some, you still need the screen, like even like heads up display in your car that tells you what your speed's going. You still need this. You still need something to reflect it off of. So if they can come up with some way where you don't need the reflective screen, which is essentially what the glasses are doing too, like that'll get us close to that Minority Report reality.
Or we all just get Neuralink implants and Grok will power our life, I guess. I don't know.
What could possibly go wrong there?
Yes. Seems fine.
Yeah,
I'm ready for
it's
it.
all
As
fine.
long as it's not another phone. I don't want another phone.
Fair. You got anything else?
I don't. Usually it's like Wednesday or Thursday that we get surprised with new AI news. So I haven't seen anything gigantic yet today. It's only 1:45 here on the West Coast. There's still time, but we'll see what tomorrow brings.
We will, and we'll talk about it next week. Thanks so much for watching and listening.
This has been the Old Guy AI podcast. Views expressed here do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the sponsors or the employers of any hosts or guests.